So we just jump into today's lecture since we lost about an hour of class today. Before I start, I think we have the same problems overall, right? The renderings are looking dark, right, overall. So that's last semester was in 24, they switched to 25, and there's always a slight change they do in the process. So we'll take a look at why the renderings are looking dark. And last time here, when I rendered my shots, I don't think I saved them, so I don't think I verified those details. So let's just do it right now here. So let's do rendering, and I'll save. So when you currently render, you're gonna say V-Ray frame buffer, and frame buffer is good because it gives you this little area here, which we're gonna use later. This area, it's almost like Photoshop, where you can load exposure controls, brightness, color saturation, all these things that you typically do in Photoshop, you can do within here. So we haven't covered that because it really wasn't an issue last semester. But let me just render or save this rendering here to to my folder here, and let's see what happens to the shot here. So I'm gonna do test, do JPEG format, leave it as automatic, recommended, and save. Let's move this to best. Okay, so let's now look at let's see here. Yes, okay, so it's not here. Desktop. All right, so this is what I get. Let's see, paint. I don't want paint. These computers in school just give me a headache every day, and nothing works, and nothing is easy. Uh, I don't want to use paint. I want just a basic picture viewer. I don't want Photoshop. I don't want. What's the basic image viewer app? Oh my God, this can. All right, I guess we'll do Photoshop. And let's try to resolve this first before we go into any topic today. As to okay, here. So of course, Photoshop is not activated. All right, we use Paint, right? To go back to the basics of antique software. All right, so this image definitely doesn't look in any way thing like our shot, right? So this one has exposure control, right? This one doesn't, right? We still have the shadows. Everything appears to be darker, which technically it should be done automatically. That's why I chose here under rendering exposure control. We did automatic exposure control, and we did here from V-Ray camera. So that should be done, right? Here, what else can we do? Again, it looks good in the view here. Nothing has changed. If I go to save, data image, that we're not going to do that. Automatic. See, if we go to rendering, and I'm trying to think how to fix this. Preference. We do have a color management removed. Yeah, they changed a few things from last time. All right, it shouldn't be this tough. Okay. All right, the other thing we can do here is this. I guess we'll cover these controls now. These controls here, right? If you go here to layers, right, then I go to add layers, then we can start to add, color balance, saturation, white balance, exposure control, all those things that are here. So let's say I go here and I add, let's say, do we have exposure control? Yes. White balance, hue. There's no, they removed brightness, so let's try exposure control. Right? So now we can go down here and we can correct this image like this, right? We can make it darker, we can make it lighter, kind of expose this. We can play with the high burn of the background, and we can play with the contrast here. So let's say, we can adjust our image to look better. Let's say I like this. So now this image has a layer applied to it, a control that will overwrite this image. So now when I save this, it should save it as the updated version here. So let's make it test2, JPEG, and save. And hope for the best. And no. So it didn't do it, yes. All right, so then it's not doing that. So I'm gonna turn off exposure control. I'm gonna turn off display correction, like that. So I turned everything off there. Let's see, save it. And there's a way to save it, which is your way, but before I get that, let me see if we can do it a different way. Because these are actually good tools to have. No. All right, so then we'll backtrack a bit, and do it the other way. So this is called a frame buffer, right? So I'm gonna, for now, disable the frame buffer until I can figure out why this is not working. So if you go here to the render setup, it's in a different screen here, and it's a V-Ray setting here. So under the V-Ray tab, you have here frame buffer. So I'm going to just simply disable the first one, enable built-in frame buffer. So disable this. It's going to disable this whole prompt, close it. Now when I render, it's going to render to a more basic render view. Ignore this. Don't worry about this. Yeah, that always happens, and it's not going to make any problems for you guys. This is just kind of showing everything that's happening behind, the software, the lighting, the light bounce. So it's not just data that's there, but now we have this image, right? And this image is now our final one. So if I save it here, and let's save it to the next one. Yes. Okay, so it looks like this. Does it look exactly like the one here? Pretty much, right? So for now, we'll just disable frame buffer, okay? I'll go back and I'll check some of the chats as to why it's rendering. But for now, this is fine. And it's, for now, we'll skip that part, which is much later on topic. So let's do that. And for you guys who submitted, that's fine. Just resubmit it again afterwards, right? There's no points lost there. Just, either delete the old ones and put the new ones. All right, so is that address that problem, right? Okay. Anything else from last class you guys were confused of the topics that we had? No? Okay. So in today's class, I want to start looking at, we'll do a bit more advanced modeling techniques, and then I want to start going into materials, right? And go to our first lecture of applying basic materials to our model here, right? These things. I did have everything in my USB, but to use it, I'm going to have to unplug my keyboards because they don't have enough USB ports in this little computer here. So this is, I didn't think of this. All right, let's see here. All right, so we'll get to that. So, okay, I'll unplug the keyboard when we get to that part. For now, let's move on here. So how did go modeling this building, this structure? Was it difficult? Any challenges? No? Okay. So because we're going to cover today applying basic materials, applying materials to this is pretty simple in a way, right? Because it's a what? It's a very simple shape, they're just boxes, right? But when you apply materials, the process changes depending if you're applying to a box or to an organic shape, something that's like a sphere or a more curvature element. So I want to also create, one curved element that we can experiment applying materials to. So I want to create a very simple, basic dome that I can use to apply materials and test out, the mapping of these materials to a non, let's say, cubic shape. So how do you think I can make a basic dome? You guys been to Rome? Anybody been to Parthenon? No? I think Professor Leah took some students, but maybe, yeah. You know that big oval shape with a nice kind of oculus in the middle, right? How do you think I could model that? With your current, expertise, let's say, in 3D Max. Where would I start in shapes, let's say? What is the basic shape of that structure? What? Yes, a sphere. So let's make a simple sphere here. So I'm gonna make a sphere here, and let's be precise, and give it like a radius here. And I don't like also this very large mouse. So let's make it a radius of let's try 7 feet here. Like this, right? And now I'm going to isolate this sphere. How do I isolate? And here, right? Okay, it was. So let's look at this sphere, and let's say to get the oculus shape, to get the dome, I'll have to play with what modifier? Yes. So be some type of subtraction, right? That we'll use for this, right? Yeah. So let's say, in what shapes might I need to be able to create this? Yes. But I need to first break up the circle. Do I need the whole sphere? Right. So I'm gonna make a box. Let's say a box here, and extrude down, right? Because we're going here. So right now this box is kind of shown right at the midpoint of the sphere, right? So please try to get off your phone, please, and look at the screen. And then here we'll have this here. We need also another shape to create the actual oculus. So what other shape could we use for this? Besides, well, now we have sphere, we have a cube, right? What will be our third shape that we can use? A cylinder? Yes, maybe, yes. Okay. So let's make one here for now. And let's be precise, we'll make the radius of the cylinder be 3 feet. This is, and we'll make the, let's see here, the height doesn't really matter as long as it passes through everything here. So we have now these three shapes, but now we have to get this cylinder where? In the center of the space. Right now it's kind of floating in space here. So I have to either use my snaps, right? So if I go to right click my snaps here, I don't need grid, right? So I'm gonna say maybe, what do you guys think we can use? Let's try midpoint, yes, okay. I'm gonna pick my cylinder. So it's not gonna pick anything there. Cylinder is not a typical shape, so we need to pick something that is, let's see here, let's look at our options. Let's turn this on. All right, so yes, we can go to midpoints, but it's hard to go right in the middle here. So it's going to the midpoint of every single line. So let's try to switch this to, not midpoint, endpoint, no, tangent, uh, vertex. And now it should be able to go there right in the middle of that, because those are actually vertex points that we can use. So now it should be kind of center in my shot right here. I'll turn off my snaps. And we have kind of something like this, right? That we can start now to play, to extract, right, the shapes. And what's the next point now? Actually, we need one more shape actually here. What do we need still? How do we create the inner dome piece? We need to subtract what? The part of the sphere from the inside. So let's take this one here, right? I'm gonna just copy it down here, make a exact copy, and then change for this one the radius from 7 feet. Just make it 6 feet, and then I'm gonna move it just back here. Again, you don't have to be too precise with this, just to get an idea. Kind of right in the center of the space, like that. And what's my last task here? Now I need to subtract all these components from here, right? So where do I find the this pro boolean tool that we used last class? Yes? Yeah, so we go to primitives, we go to the plus sign, the little circle, right? And then we go to compound objects, right? So first of all, which object do I pick first? The cylinder, the first sphere, the second sphere, the box. When you do subtraction, what do you pick first? You pick whatever, yeah, go ahead. Yes, the one you're gonna keep, right? Yeah, so I'm gonna keep this large sphere. So I'm gonna pick this first, then I go to pro boolean, right? And I can start just clicking, right? I should be able to go here to subtract, start picking, and I do 1, 2, 3, right? And now we should have this kind of shape like this. Right? Yes, I could have gone there and I could have maybe added more lines here so it's more precise, but it's not really a big deal. But we do have this kind of nice ocular shape that we can try to map a material and see how it looks in this sense. Now we can do and isolate, and we have this kind of shape here. Give me a chance because it's hard to work with the computer here, the keyboard here, the mouse here, and I'm not used to this setup here. So I'll be a little slower with these things here. All right, so I'm just gonna put it here for now. And we have this shape that now we can test out some, let's say here, materials. Next thing I wanna do is I wanna do one more thing here that we didn't cover in class last time, and it's the array tool. What is array? Yes. And we can copy in X, Y, or Z axis, right, to create shapes, right? We can create patterns. So let's say here, I'm going to, let's make another shape. Let's go to primitives. Let's go to a cylinder. Let's make one over here. All right, sorry, this is, how would I make this thing smaller? These are, made up huge. The, those, well, okay, let's leave it as here. We'll put this as, let's make it 8 feet in height. Change the radius to 5 inches. All right, that would serve as a very primitive column, right? So let's try to apply to this column a array tool, right? So let's isolate this over here, like this. So I'm gonna pick my column, right? I'll go here to modify and modifier list, and I'm gonna look for array right here on the top list. And then we have plenty of controls here. There are different ways to array. You can do grid, radial, spline, surface, and what's that say? Pylon axis. We'll try all of them. So grid is probably the most simple one, right? And you can array through, let's see, the count, right? So right now we have a count of 5. We can see here. We can then array by the offset of each one, right? We can do the spacing to give it a precise spacing, say 2 feet or 3 feet. We can do also along the Y direction, the spacing. And we can do also the Z direction. That means we can go up, and we can also sorry, this mouse is really bad. Okay, there we go. That's why. So how could this be useful for you guys? What could it help you guys make? structure, you know, in a very basic way, right? This is not like let's say something more precise, but you can do basic structure. We can also do it, you know, radial, right? Radial. We can do again the count. Oops. So we can create here. So let's say here for this shape that I have, right? The main thing here is I need to locate my column right in the middle. So let's say for now, I'm just gonna guess, let's say somewhere there. Then I can play here with the radius to get it pretty much out to the edge. Then I can play with, you know, how many columns do I want, or less. The spacing, we can do the angle here. So we can say, are they going to array 360 or a bit less, you know, those things. And we can make like an entrance. What else? Here, 360. And then we can do it like this, right? So I mean, again, you can play with this, you know, the idea here is that we're gonna make the columns around this kind of dome shape. So I wouldn't do 61 rings. Keep it as, so rings are offsetting, right? Each shape out to the edges. So we're gonna do just one ring of offsets. I'll keep it as a 360 rotation, like this. And we'll start the angle at 0. So we have this. So now we can achieve something like this, right? Pretty simple, right? Let me do one more shape over here also. So this shape, I'll do also array here. I'm gonna select it, right? Let's do modifier. We'll do array. And I'm gonna use the one here, it's called the last one here, which is hard to pronounce. This one here. This one's kind of fun because you can make very interesting. So you're just gonna kind of play with all these tools here. I'm gonna expand it, change the angle, variation. So we're making out, I don't know what it is, but what do you guys think this could be? So I can play with the size here, right, or the shapes. I can play with the scale bias here. And I took a very simple box and made it into this. Again, this is not really, again, I will call this design. It's not really precise, right, but it's a way to what? To generate what? Conceptual ideas, right? In the beginning, you're thinking, right, you're looking for a pattern. This could be a pretty cool pattern that can be used, right, in a shape. This could be a structural element. And it all came from a simple box, right? And just playing just with the distribution and playing with all the little tools here to see what each one does. You can, you know, modify this to, it's a quick way to, you know, generate ideas in your shape, right? So array is pretty good, you know, when it comes to this abstract organic ideas. So, you know, just try it out, you know, experiment with it and see what you guys can create. For now, you know, we're just gonna focus on this shape over here that we have. All right, so that now we have pretty much all our shapes here. I'm just gonna move this thing and just put it back into our little platform that we have here. And then we'll start with materials. That'll be today's main topic for the class. And this will be our experimental grounds here. Okay. So materials. What do we need to know about materials? I mean, I'm just gonna plug in my mouse and unplug my keypad. In the meantime, you guys tell me when I get materials, what does material need to look like? What are the materials? Just quality. Um, what's important with materials? Have you guys before used them? Let's say in Rhino. So when you apply one, what do you consider? The scale. Okay. Yes. What else? Texture. Okay. What about the quality of the material? Is that important for you guys? Okay. Here we go. Yes. What about how the material repeats itself? can I just pick any material that I find? Can I take a picture and make it a material? You could, but what is the main disadvantage of that? The quality, right? So, and where do I get them from materials? Do I have to make them? Yes, exactly. So I have a bunch here that I downloaded from a site called, and it's a free site that you guys can just use your Gmail account to log in. If you do SketchUp, what is it? Yes, it's on here. It's called the SketchUp Textures, right? It's a free, even though SketchUp doesn't matter, but it has a very large source of free materials. You can log in with your Gmail account, and all you do here is go to Textures. There are some ads, but and they have a good selection of architecture textures here. So if you look at here, we have architecture, and we have tons: brick, building, concrete, these things, right? Because you can make your own material, but it's a bit difficult to make your own because you need certain alignments, right? Does that make sense? Why? How does a material really work when you apply it? In what? Like if I'm going to apply to this wall, let's say brick, right? Do I need a photograph of this entire wall covered in brick to be able to map it? No. Why? Because that'll be immense in size. So what do you typically do? Right? How do I create the illusion of the whole wall being covered in brick? What do I have? Let's say my floor is this, right? What is this? Some type of paver, right, for the floor. You know, if I'm gonna pave 10,000 square feet, I can't have a map that size. So this is simply a small piece that is squared of this material. So what's important about this material when it maps? The scale, yes, but how does the material truly work, really? It repeats, right, the pattern. So can I draw here? Let's see here. I have to go back to the very primitive stuff. Tools. All right, sorry for the delay. I'm just trying to figure out how to. Okay, so let's say that I'm gonna play with this here. So this, let's say, square piece is my material of tile, right? And this tile is, you know, has certain shapes, certain elements here, and it's only a small section, right? When you apply this material to in 3D Max or any software, this is, let's say, one, right? That's my actual material. What does it do, actually, 3D Max, to make the illusion of applying to a much bigger, unlimited surface? Anybody? Just guess. No? So let's say it takes this material, this whole box, right? And it will repeat it, right? So it will repeat it here, right? It will repeat it here, right? For unlimited amount of, you know, times, depending how big it is. So when I start repeating the same material one over and over again, what are the key things to make it look good? Yes, that's the main thing. So this line here, right? So in a way, this material is mirrored to the other side. So this line needs to match perfectly here, here, and here. Same thing with here. All different directions. So when you map this, and this is called a seamless material, right? Where everything aligns perfectly, and it creates the illusion of a much bigger one, right? Sure. If I pick something from online, maybe, and it happens all the time, if things don't align, it's gonna make it look what? The material. It will look fake, right? So alignment, you know, material quality, the material resolution. If it's blurry, it's going to look better because you really can't make it too big. If things don't align, if the material doesn't have enough pixels, DPI, right, it's also not good. So, and the ones that say you get here from this side are overall all pretty good, right? And of course, they have a free side and have a paid side. The free side is more than enough for any material. Don't need to make an account or pay for it. Just go to here, you know, go here and just pick out, I don't know, 5 or 7 materials that you guys like, but ones that are typical for architecture. Wood material, concrete, something with pattern, right? So if I go to break, for example, here, we have tons of break that we have here, and everything here is seamless, right? So someone took the time to align all these things here, like here, right? let's say we'll look at this one here. And we have, tons and tons of options here. It'll download as a zip file, then you can just extract it and get your materials. So I can't go anymore because I need to log in, but you guys can do that afterwards. So in the meantime, I kind of downloaded a bunch of materials here to test out today in class, like here. So we have a pattern material, something like marble that we can try, because eventually with marble, we can give it other qualities than basic materials, right? We can go to glossiness, right? Reflection values, bumps. We have also tile patterns, brick, wood patterns, tile, and grass. So we'll try applying these things. And some of them are also, see this one here, it's in color. And then we have the same one in black and white. Why would I have a black and white version of the color one? Come on, guys. So I guess you guys haven't dealt with this before. This is a new topic. How do you create bumps in materials? Huh? Yes. So how do I make the break look like it's actually bumpy, has texture, right? You apply a bump, right? So we'll cover that eventually, yes. But and bumps are done through black and white images, right? That we have. So, and we'll explore those things later, right? So let's start to, and we have also here concrete, which has a nice pattern. So this concrete, is an actual photograph, right? Someone took, right? And then in Photoshop, they made sure that everything aligned, right? And the hard thing about a photograph is that, this tone of gray might be different color than this tone of gray. So when this image realigns over here, these two grays need to match in color, right? Or you're gonna see what? Shadow, but you're gonna see a pattern, right? So when you put break here, the idea is they all blend together, right? Once you see pattern, right, then it looks fake, and then all your work looks bad. So let's start with this one here, which is a concrete material, and we'll try to apply it to a shape over here. So let's start here. And let's start with something very basic. So I'm going to simply just make a box over here. And let's just let's isolate this box and just focus here. So to make a material, we're gonna start by looking at this tab over here, right? This is called the material editor. You can also hit the M key on your keyboard, but let's click here, and we're gonna make one change. By default, this is how the material key looks like, but we're gonna change this under mode. Go to mode and go to compact material editor. Will give me this view, which is nice because you can see all your materials that are active, and we have all our controls down here. By default, you see that this is called a physical material, but it's not going to work with us. What do we need? So we have currently a V-Ray scene, right? So we need what? V-Ray materials, right? So the first tab over here, right? This little, looks like a sphere with a checker pattern. Click here, and then move down until you see V-Ray. And again, if you don't see V-Ray here, it means you haven't installed V-Ray in your computer. So go here, and we're gonna put a default V-Ray material, the one here called V-Ray MTL, which just means V-Ray material. Just double click it, and it will load it over here. Oops, sorry here, because I had this one clicked. Let me go over here. I'm gonna pick the top left again, select the material, V-Ray MTL, and there it is. Now I can close this. So once the material is here, what should be the first thing I do to the material? The first modification to be really organized. Think of it as layers, right? Huh? Name, yes. Always give it a name, right? So on top here, I'm gonna call this concrete. And then we have lots of controls here. And we're gonna go over to each one in a different class. So today will be a basic materials application, but all these will have a control something, whether it's bump, reflection, transparency, glossiness, metallic values. We'll cover those in an advanced class. For now, today we're gonna focus only on this one over here, the basic parameters. So this material, also if you double click it, you can maximize it, and you can kind of look at it in detail and see how the material looks here, or we can close it. All right, so right now it's gray, right? So if I take this box, and how do I apply the material here? So there's two ways to apply it. You know, if the scene is very simple, you can drag it and drop it. Right? If it's very complex, you can select it, and you can go here to this one here, which means assign material to selection, and I can assign it. Both have the same option. And you see the material is currently gray, which is controlled by this diffuse color over here. So if I change the diffuse color to pink or anything, that'll be the color of my box. The rest doesn't really matter, right? So right now, this is if we're working with no materials, but I want to make it a concrete box, right? So in that case, skip all this and just move down to the last tab, the one called Maps. If you guys are lost, just let me know, okay? If I go too fast, let me know. So go down to Maps, and we're gonna see that we have lots of spaces here to add maps. All these over here. Again, we're never gonna use all of them. We might use two, we might use three at the most at the same time, but to start, you see how this is called diffuse, right? The first one. And on top here is also called diffuse, right? So diffuse controls what the object looks like, right? If there's no material, it'll be just whatever color is here, right? If I load a material here, it's going to override the color, right? And you can see here on top, this little gray box over here. Right now it's empty, right? So I'm gonna now add a material to this. So we have diffuse, right? A little check mark to activate or deactivate the material. The 100 here is the is like a gradient, right? Do you want it to be seen to 100%, or do you want to play with the opacity and make it less visible in the area? And then we have map here. So this is where I load the material. So click here, go down and look for, let's see here, where is it? Go look for general, then go to bitmap and double click it. Now it's gonna just go to your folder, wherever that might be. Let's see, desktop. And I'm gonna pick the concrete material and do open. And let's make it bigger here. So there I applied the material to a sphere, right? It gives you a basic shadow and some very simple lighting to be able to imagine what this material looks like. What's next? You see here now also there's an M shown right there. That means that this M means material and is being shown over here, right? So this is the actual now, and this thing took a while, but finally, updated. So there's the concrete applied to this box. So would I leave it like this? Once you apply, what's the next step for the material? You got what? Scale it, right? So you have to scale it because, and the scaling here is pretty rough, right? It's not exactly precise. I mean, if you know a size, if you know that this, let's say, square here is, let's say, I don't know, 4 by 4, right? You can do it, plus or minus, right? Or you can just scale it simply. So let's do it both ways. So how do you scale here? Guess, what do I apply to this? Like we do everything else in 3D Max. Yes. So I'm gonna pick the box, right? Select it, go to the properties, and we're actually gonna apply two systems. One that tells 3D Max what the object looks like, and the second one is how to scale it, make it bigger or smaller. So the first one is I'll go down here to the one called UVW map. And this tells 3D Max what is, so it gives you a very simple list here: planar, cylindrical, spherical, box, shrink wrap, and face. From these shapes, what is the closest thing that this box looks like? Box, right? It would be exactly, but something rough, in that sense. If I was making a sphere, then I would pick something spherical, right? Or, we can try the rest. So box. Second one tells it how to map it. So apply a second modifier, and this one's called map scalar. Right here, this one. And now we have a scale offset here, and we have a U and V offset. So scale, I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, like this, and then I can further control here, let's say for example, to make it, align things there, to make it bigger. So let's try to make it precise. So like I said, let's say that these boxes are gonna be 4x4, right? So I'm gonna make this box here, the actual box, let's make it an 8x8 box. See if we can get it to be precise here. Sometimes you can just kind of guess it, but we'll make everything 8x8. There. So we could kind of, go back to scale here and just kind of make it bigger, bigger, until I tried, and I always try, so try to start from the bottom. So you see this line here, move it down. There, align to the bottom. Now I'm gonna make the scale bigger here. That line shouldn't move. And rough is there, right? Next, I gotta move it from left to right, so I'll go to the other one here. And plus or minus, that's, again, if you're off by an inch, no one's gonna know, right? So you don't have to be that precise with these things. And it looks pretty good, but again, it looks pretty good around here. But what happens when I go to a different phase? Here's good, and here's good, because this is a symmetrical shape, right? So everything here is pretty good. If you don't know the exact shape, or if this box is not 8x8, you could make a separate box. Let's say here. And what would I make that box? Let's say that my box, my spacing is 3x3 in my shape. I will make a 3x3 box, right? And that box is gonna serve as what? As a guide, right? So let's say I'm gonna put this box, let's say somewhere here, there. Doesn't matter where it is, right? And now I'm gonna play with my scale here. So let's say I'm gonna take this one. I want to align to the bottom of the shape. So let's go here. Let's go to properties. Let's go to map scalar. Want to align the lower line plus or minus to that size. Then I'll lower the scale. Set up again. Again, this is not really precise, but it'll give you an idea of how to get, run a pretty good scale. Like that, and then we can just move it here. And we get a pretty good size right there. So again, it's not as precise, but it's pretty good, and if you're off by, a little bit, it doesn't really matter. So now we have this box here, and now we can, of course, play, do we want to align this line here? Do I want to move it left or right? And we know that now we can delete this, and these are all roughly 3x3 in size for the scale. Does that make sense? Right? And in this case, it's a very simple shape here. So let's make a different shape here. Let's make a cylindrical shape. Let's make a cylinder. I'm gonna give it a few more sides here. Properties. Okay. And can I make this also concrete? Well, let's try it. We'll select the right. I can do M for materials, and I can drag it and drop it here. So how does it look right now with this shape, without any applications? Looks okay, somewhat, but everything's gonna stretch because it really has no idea how to treat this object that we have, right? So again, select it, and we'll apply always two modifiers. We go again to UV map, and what am I going to pick this time? Cylindrical, right? And cap, right? Over here. In case it's there's no top, we can remove the cap, but we have that. And then second part, we're gonna apply which one? Yep, map scalar. Here, yes. And again, the same thing. We have now a nice shape. Obviously, this won't align because it's it's a different shape, but overall, it's mapped correctly here, and we can now scale it and adjust those things here. So how does this compare to Rhino, the process of applying a basic material? Come on, you guys know Rhino, so tell me, how does the process compare? Huh? In what way, yes? Okay. Do you drag and drop the material when you apply it? Also, yes. Okay. Do you apply modifiers? That's a little bit different, right? Okay. So keep that in mind because everything always requires two of them, right? Map scaler and UV map. So it'll get easier because eventually it becomes second nature to apply it as you add these things. So let's do now. All right, so before I continue now, let's first just make our materials, all of them, to make it simple. So let's go here, right? So we already have the first one, which is called concrete, right? Do I have to go here and do everything again? How can I make things easier? Because we have here like maybe 20 materials. What can I do? How can you make life easier? Or I have to go here, of course, give it a name, go down here, go to maps, select viewer material, find my links. How can I have everything kind of preset beforehand? Yes. So I'm gonna take this one, drag it, and copy here, right? And when I copy, what's the first thing that I must do always? And people always forget that because change the name. So let's say we call this wood, right there. I can just go straight to my link here, my folder, right? Go here to the parameters. It's gonna go straight to the folder, and I can just load my here. Right? Do it again, and here, this one here is to go back. Right? So we have here wood. I can copy it again. We're gonna call it. Let's try blue tile, no blue marble. I want to set up all my materials first. Go again down here. Go to diffuse parameters. I'm gonna copy it again. Let's call this tile. So what happens if you forget to change the name? What do you guys think? What's gonna happen? It might start to flicker because it doesn't know which one to use, right? So, um, and it happens quite often because you forget to you copy and paste, and that's pretty fast. So this one, what do we call this one? No, this is more like a stone. And let me do one more. I'm gonna call this tile. Again, you guys can find other materials, but try to mix it up, something that is kind of architectural. Let's try this one here, and I'll do one more here. We call this, oh, this is papers. And then we'll do tile. Try this one here. Okay. All right, so there's my first 6 materials, right? These are all very basic. Right now, they have no bump, they have no reflection, and they have no glossiness, right? So just basic. We're gonna go over trying to apply them to our scene. Again, pick things that are typically architectural, right? Nothing too much pattern, nothing too crazy. And then for now, that's all that we need for these materials, right? We're gonna skip everything else that we have here. The thing to keep in mind here is that when you play with this, you keep going into more drop-down menus, and you might get lost here. So when I go here to concrete, we see that concrete is showing over here, right? We have basic parameters and other things here, and then we go down to maps. But when I click on the actual material, now I go to a whole new window, right? So you won't see here any more concrete. If you want to go back, these are more controls for that material, right? Advanced controls. If you want to go back to the main, let's say prompt, then you have to go here. So go to parent, and that will take you back to the main prompt here for the materials. That makes sense? Yeah? Okay. All right, so let's, sorry, 10, 11. Let's just apply everything here. And this can be done pretty fast, so. Let's start with this over here. So what are we gonna give this material? for the dough. What do you guys think? What should we use? The blue marble? We can try this. So let's see. So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna take this one. There. So now this one we do have to give it again everything the same thing, right? Select it, UV map. What shape am I going to use here? It's none of these shapes, right? But what's the closest one? Like that, spherical, yeah, spherical, and it starts to wrap it nicely also on the inside here, and also probably on the over here. Doesn't look too bad. And then of course we can give it the map scaler afterwards, like that, and then we can just find the right size. And you see that this material, well, you're gonna see a little bit of what's happening here. Is it accurate or no? The material. What's wrong with it? Yeah, so it's not really. So even though I'm increasing the size of the material here, uh, it's treating each line as a separate element. So it's really not correct, right? Because we see these lines here separating each one. So this is why I made this shape here, because this shape is unique. It doesn't follow any of these parameters. It's not a cube, it's not a cylinder, it's not a sphere. It's a mix of different shapes. So when I use map scaler, it doesn't know how to treat it properly. You see, even here, it's not really working, So what we do here is we're not going to use map scaler. We're just going to delete this. Delete that, and we're going to delete also UV map because this map doesn't follow any of those qualities. And we're gonna scale this with a different way. We're gonna scale this directly from the actual material. So here, right, if you guys take a look at this, here's the material, right? Go down to its location. So we go down to maps. Here, right, diffuse, there's the material. Now on top here is the material, let's say coordinates or modifiers. And here we can control the material directly. So if I zoom in here, and I want to make this thing smaller, we can add more tiles like this, right? Or we can make it like this. But what's happening, right? It's keeping all the right size, right? So it's not, we don't see any more of those lines. So this needs to be scaled through here. And again, we can still offset it. We can move it left and right. We can move it up and down. And we can change the tile to make it bigger or to make it smaller like this. And now it should be looking better, right? Because all the lines are, again, close enough matching. It's not as precise, but this is a hard shape to map, and it looks better than the other one. So there are two ways to scale. One is directly from the material, and one is through modifiers in my object. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So your task for the next class is going to be to map your scene, right? And to create the next set of renderings that are showing the basic materials of your scene, right? This I can probably delete. I don't need that. And like here, just start to let's say this piece I'm going to use, I don't know, concrete. There it is. All right, so one thing here. You see how I applied the concrete to this shape? I applied it, and I can't see it. This might happen to you guys. Why can't I see it? It's a setting over here. Setting that says here, show material in viewport. And sometimes, it's off. So if you turn it off, you're gonna see the default color green. If you turn it on, you're gonna see the material. And if you can't see it here, it means that you're not applying to the right one. You see here, this shape has a mirror, right? An extrude and a rectangle. So I have to apply it to the main shape. So in this case, this one here. And then I can apply it. It should work. Or let's try to give it a UV map. There we go. A box and a map scaler. And then you guys can play with the scale, those things. Something is off here. Why is it only that shape? All right, I'm going to ignore that. I'm not sure why that's like that, but this should be one shape. Yes. All right, and let's look at this over here. So these shapes here. Let me select this over here. All right, how would I map this? Would I map it each one individually, or can I make a grouping and map everything at the same time? You can group it, yes. But what you have to consider here is, because these are steps, right? What if you want the riser to be one material and the thread a different material? Then what do you have to do to be more precise? Yes. So you will have to kind of, but to make it easier, because right now it's 1, 2, 3, and 4 shapes. What I would do is combine them together, right? So let's say I start with this shape here, and I go here to the plus, the circle, go to compound objects, and go to Pro Boolean and do union, and start picking. So now it's all one geometry here, right? Next, I would select it, right-click it, and do convert to editable mesh that we did before. Next, I will go here to polygon, right? And I would select, I will kind of separate these things. So I will pick the vertical ones here, do control. Just to be more precise with the part here. And then what do I do now? Huh? Not yet. First we gotta detach it to make it separate. So I'm gonna detach this, right? You can give it a name, right, if you want. You can call it riser. I can exit out. And now these are two separate things, right? One part that's horizontal and one part that is vertical. So let's say I'm gonna apply this wood, right? So I'm gonna pick the top one, like that, right? Again, we go to UV map. So the color here is derived from the color of the material. But right now it's solid. You won't get the actual material until you apply the UV map. Oops, not that one. Let's go here to UV map. There, right? And then we can, pick it. We can do box, I think works. And then we'll do map scaler. All right, so let's say that's my floor material. And this floor really wouldn't wrap the corner right. It would be kind of strange. So either you can change materials or you can apply it again to here. Let's say we're gonna make it separate. Let's make it maybe stone here. So we'll apply this one here, like that. We do again UV map. Box we can try. And then map scaler. Now we have something like this, right? Very simple design where two different materials applied in the same location. And isolate. So making my cameras. Okay, and what's going to happen to your renderings as you start to apply materials? What's up? Yes, but how is the lighting going to change? So what typically affects the light color of a space? So as you apply a material, depending on the color, blue, I don't know, brown or beige, green, orange, when the light hits these elements, what happens to the light? So if you paint your wall red, right, and the light hits the wall, what's going to happen to your atmosphere of your room? Yeah, reddish, pinkish in color, right? So right now, when the light hits this blue dome, it's going to bring an extra amount of blue light to the space, right? If I painted the floor black, what's going to happen? We're going to lose lighting in the space, right? If I painted the floor white, we're going to get probably an overexposed image because now the light is stronger and there's more light bound. So as you apply more materials, you're going to see that will get probably darker because different material will absorb light differently. Right now, we just have basic colors here. So keep that in mind, and see how your room will change depending on the material application you have, right? Right, and you guys are gonna keep going through this and just apply something. I'm not gonna go in class through every single material. It's the same process for each one. Make sure everything is mapped. 1 second here. Let me do one more. And I want you guys to also apply to this, right, to the base. And also here, for these kind of cavities, also kind of detach them and apply, different materials to that, right? It shouldn't be all the same for every single one. So for this one, we can just select it. We can do, and also get familiar with doing select, right click, and isolate. So you can really focus on these things here. So like here, I can do select these areas. And maybe I'll pick everything the same color. Like this, right? The bottom one. Then I'll do detach. And apply this tile. Oops, wrong one. Do the pavers. Again, this part becomes faster and faster because now you're familiar with UV map and also with map scaler, which should be easier. That. And then this one, I'm going to apply this one. Again, UVW map, map scaler. Make it a small tile like this. All right, so now we have a new scene here, right? Any other question regarding material application? Again, this is just our basic. We're still going to cover eventually this tab, everything else here because they'll add more realism to to everything as we go here with the materials. The last thing that I want to cover today is the environment, just quick environment shot here. So let me set up this view here, a little closer here. I want to get more space, so I'm going to take this one here and do editable mesh, polygon. This one, that one, yes. I'm going to make it a little bigger my floor here so I can see more. Okay. So what happened when I moved that? Look at the floor. I had applied the material, right? And then I went and I moved it. Or at least I stretched it. I went to polygon here, selected this polygon, and I went like this, right? Whatever. So I made it bigger. Then I went back to map scaler, and what happened? So once you apply the material in a set, and then you go afterwards and you stretch it, you lose all the settings. So how could I fix this? Simply just delete map scaler, right? Oops, no, I need to select here. Yes, delete here. Delete UV map, right? And apply it again, right? So go back again to UVW map. Make a box. We'll do map scaler. And now it's not working. Okay, if it doesn't work, what you can do here also is select it and do convert to editable mesh. That will reset all the settings. Now select it again, UVW map. There we go. Box, and then map scaler. That makes sense? So some things, need to be reset to work again. But now we have this tile, we have this tile here. And now let me make the view a little bit more precise. So my camera now has some space in the ground, so I'm gonna step back here. And I want to be able to see the floor and the sky at the same time. The last thing today is just simply, I want to add more detail to the sky. I'm gonna look up here. So let's look at the sky like this. So right now we have our basic sky from 3D Max, right? Which simply is just no clouds. We are able to create realistic clouds here. So if you go to the sun, find your sun here, and just click on the sun tab here, and then go to the properties here, and then move down to where it says clouds down here. I'm gonna turn clouds on. Again, we have all these parameters, but for now, just turn it on and render again. Let me first of all set up my save frame and render. Difference, right? So these are actual clouds. I mean that they will create shadows, right? They will make the rendering take longer because they're actually volumetric clouds. And we are able to control the cloud settings here. So if you look at the settings here of the cloud, so again, go back to the sun. We have here density, variety, seed, cirrus amount. What is cirrus? What do you call those very high up clouds that are past, the main atmosphere? So if I put this on, cirrus clouds, let's say it's 0.2, let's make it 1 and render again. You see them? These clouds will be here, right? So you have an upper atmosphere clouds, lower atmosphere clouds. If you want the clouds to be bigger or lower to the ground, right, you can go here. Let's see. We have density is 1. If I make it, so density, if I make it 3, what's going to happen to the clouds? Bigger, but there'll be more clouds, right? Let's see. Actually, no, you're right, bigger, yes. Yes, my mistake there. Yeah, so they get a little bit fatter there. Okay. Like that, okay, yes. So experiment with this, because we're gonna do clouds two different ways eventually in class. For now, this is the first way. This is nice, but it does take a bit of time to render eventually. And there's a lot of settings you can try here. So I would say, first of all, take note. So when you go here to the sun, and you go here to kind of take note of the original settings before you start modifying everything, because you might forget, settings. So the height, 1,000, the thickness, right? It can make for a very nice environment of the scene here. So add this setting of the clouds to your renderings, apply all the materials, and then capture 5 new renderings for the next class. And again, we have roughly 2 weeks of not being in class, so it should give you time to experiment, right? If you feel like you want to create 10 renderings, then make as many as you want, but at least 5 for the class, right? Any questions? All right, so I want to add any more. I think that's good for this today's topic, and hopefully we won't lose more time with with these computers. All right, so I'll finish the video here. So.